What if the whispers of the forest held secrets that no one was meant to uncover? I often found myself pondering this as I stepped into the heart of the taiga, a sprawling wilderness that felt both familiar and alien. My name is Alexei Ivanov, a forest ranger dedicated to protecting the vast, untamed beauty of these woods. But my duty had never prepared me for the unsettling experiences that awaited me in this desolate yet captivating realm. The taiga isn't just a backdrop. It pulses with life, its very essence woven into the fabric of my existence. The towering pines, draped in layers of enchanting mist, seem to lean in closer, their branches whispering secrets to one another. Each time I ventured deeper into the forest, I felt as if I were stepping into a living entity, one that harbored mysteries far beyond my comprehension. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine needles, a perfume that masked the presence of something darker lurking beneath the surface. Days turned into weeks as I patrolled these woods, my routine punctuated by the rhythmic sound of my boots crunching on the forest floor. I was no stranger to the peculiarities of nature. I had witnessed the eerie glow of the northern lights illuminating the night sky, and the sudden silence that enveloped the forest just before a storm. But this time, something felt off. It started with the sightings, shadows flitting between the trees when I knew I was alone. I dismissed the first few occurrences as tricks of the light, my mind playing games after long hours of solitude. Yet, the feeling of being watched gnawed at me, an unsettling presence that sent chills racing down my spine. One evening, as I sat by the flickering glow of my campfire, I heard it, a faint melodic humming that seemed to echo through the trees. My heart raced, and I strained to listen, but the sound was gone as quickly as it had come. Curiosity urged me to investigate, and as I stepped away from the fire, the darkness enveloped me like a shroud. The trees, usually my sanctuary, now loomed like sentinels, their gnarled branches twisting into grotesque shapes under the pale moonlight. I could feel the forest breathing, its exhale a cold wind that whispered secrets I was not meant to know. A child growing up in the small town of Arkhangelsk, I had always been drawn to the wilderness, finding solace in the embrace of nature. My father, a skilled hunter, often took me on expeditions, teaching me to respect the land and its creatures. But it was during one of those trips that tragedy struck, an accident that claimed his life and left an indelible scar on my soul. The guilt of surviving that fateful day haunted me, and the forest became both my refuge and my prison. Now, standing beneath the canopy of ancient trees, I felt the weight of my past pressing down on me. My father had always warned me about the things that lurked in the shadows, tales of spirits that protected the land. I had dismissed them as mere folklore, but doubt crept in, gnawing at the edges of my rationality. What if there was truth in his stories? What if the forest was more than just a collection of trees and wildlife? And then, as if the forest was answering my unspoken questions, I stumbled upon an old, weathered cabin deep within the woods. The structure was half hidden by overgrown vines and moss, its presence a stark contrast to the surrounding wilderness. My heart raced as I approached, the air thick with the scent of decay. It felt like stepping into a forgotten chapter of a book, one that had been left intentionally unread. Inside, remnants of a life once lived lay scattered across the floor, faded. Photographs, cracked furniture, and a dusty lantern that still held a flicker of its former light. But it was the journal resting on the table that caught my eye, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. As I carefully flipped through the entries, a chill washed over me. The words spoke of strange occurrences, flickering lights, unexplainable sounds, and a growing darkness that seemed to consume the forest. The final entry sent a shiver down my spine, a haunting plea for help, penned in frantic handwriting. Was this cabin merely a relic of the past, or had it become a vessel for something far more sinister? As I stood there, The weight of the forest pressed against me, a reminder that I was not alone in this realm. I could feel the eyes of the trees upon me, their whispers swirling in the air like a storm brewing on the horizon. But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. The night cloaked the forest in a shroud of darkness, and the air grew heavy with an unshakable tension. I stood in the cabin, heart pounding, as shadows danced around me. The walls seemed to whisper, echoing. The fears that rattled within my mind. I could hear the wind howling outside, but it was an unnatural sound, like a voice rising in a mournful lament. As I stepped outside, the moonlight illuminated the twisted trunks of the trees that surrounded me. The melodic humming I had heard before returned, now a haunting chorus that beckoned me deeper into the forest. I hesitated, caught between the safety of the cabin and the pull of the unknown. Just then, a figure emerged from the underbrush, a silhouette that made my skin crawl. Alexei? The voice was familiar, yet distant, sending a jolt of recognition through me. It was Dmitri, a fellow ranger, though I hadn't seen him in months. His face was paler than I remembered, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and urgency. "What are you doing out here?" I asked, trying to mask my own apprehension. "This isn't a safe place to be at night. I could say the same to you." He stepped closer, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. "I came looking. For you. I've been hearing things, strange noises, shadows moving in the dark. It's not just the wind, Alexei. There's something wrong with the forest." I felt a chill run down my spine at his words. "I know," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I gestured back toward the cabin. "I found a journal inside. It belongs to someone who lived here, someone who went missing. They wrote about the same things we've been experiencing." Dimitri's expression darkened. "I've seen those shadows too. They're not just figments of our imagination. Last week, a group of campers vanished without a trace. People are starting to talk. They think the forest is cursed." A sense of dread wrapped around my chest, squeezing tighter with each word. "But what does that mean? Cursed how?" He shook his head, his gaze distant. "I don't know, but I saw something last night. A figure in the trees watching me. It just stood there, silent. And then it was gone. I thought I was losing my mind, but now I'm not so sure." The wind picked up, rustling the leaves, and I felt the weight of the forest pressing in on us. "We need to get back to the station. We can report this to the authorities," I said, my voice cracking under the strain of my anxiety. Dmitri nodded, but his eyes darted nervously around the clearing. "You don't understand. They won't believe us. They never do. This forest has its own rules, Alexei. If we don't figure out what's happening, we might be next." As we stood there, the hum intensified, wrapping around us like a living entity. It was both beautiful and horrifying, a melody that promised answers while hinting at unspeakable horrors. I felt the urge to follow it, to uncover the mystery that lay just beyond our reach. But fear held me in place, an invisible tether that kept my feet firmly planted on the ground. "Are you with me?" Dimitri's voice broke through my thoughts, his expression earnest. "We can't ignore this. We need to confront whatever is out there." I met his gaze, the weight of my past pressing down on me. I remembered my father's warnings, the stories of spirits that guarded the forest, the guilt that had shadowed. My every step returned, a reminder of the life I had lost and the promises I'd made to protect this land. "Yes," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "But we have to be careful. If there's something out there, we need to approach it wisely." We made our way back toward the cabin, the shadows lengthening around us as we moved. The forest felt alive, the trees swaying in a rhythm that matched the haunting hum that echoed in my ears. I could almost sense the presence of something ancient, something that had been waiting for us to uncover its secrets. As we entered the cabin, I felt a sudden chill sweep through the air, and the journal seemed to pulse with energy as I laid it on the table. "Let's go through this," I said, urgency lacing my words. "Maybe there's something in here that can help us understand what we're dealing with." Dmitri leaned over the journal, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a passage that described a ritual meant to appease the spirits of the forest. "It talks about a guardian spirit, one that protects the balance of nature, but when disturbed, it can unleash chaos." "Chaos," I echoed, my heart racing. "What if the forest is trying to warn us? What if it's been disturbed?" "Maybe. The campers didn't respect the land," he mused. "Or maybe it's something else entirely." The air grew heavy as I turned to a page filled with frantic scrawls. "There's something here about a gathering, a place in the woods where the veil between the living and the dead is thin. It's marked with a symbol, something resembling a tree entwined with a serpent." Dimitri's eyes widened. "I've seen that symbol before. It's an old folk tale, something the locals used to warn people about. They say it's a portal, a place where the spirits can cross over." A sense of dread settled in my stomach. If that's true, we need to find it before it's too late. The forest is not just alive, it's watching us. We have to figure out how to restore the balance before it claims more lives. Just then, a deafening crash echoed from outside, shaking the cabin. We exchanged horrified glances, adrenaline surging through my veins as I grabbed a flashlight and stepped toward the door. "Stay close," I ordered, my voice firm despite the fear gnawing at my insides. As we stepped out, the moonlight illuminated the clearing, revealing a mass of branches twisted together, forming what looked like a barrier. The trees seemed to shimmer, their bark pulsating with a strange energy. I could feel the whispers intensifying, a cacophony of voices merging into a singular, haunting call. "What is happening?" Dmitri hissed, his voice a mix of awe and terror. "I don't know," I replied, my heart racing as I scanned the trees. "But we're being drawn into something we don't fully understand. We need to find that gathering place. It might be our only chance to make sense of all of this." Suddenly, from the shadows, a figure emerged. A woman, her long hair flowing, like tendrils of smoke. Her eyes glimmered with an otherworldly light, and I felt an odd pull toward her. "You seek answers," she said, her voice echoing through the clearing as if carried by the wind itself. "But the truth comes at a cost." "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my throat dry. "I am one with the forest," she replied, her gaze penetrating. "And you have awakened forces that should remain undisturbed. The balance is shifting, and you must decide whether to restore it or allow it to spiral into chaos." Dmitri stepped forward, his bravado faltering. "What do we need to do?" he asked, desperation lacing his words. The woman's eyes darkened. "You must confront the guardian, face the shadows that lurk in your hearts. Only then will you have the power to mend what is broken." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implications that threatened to crush us. I looked at Dmitri, uncertainty swirling between us. We had come seeking answers, but now it felt as if we were standing on the precipice of something far beyond our understanding. "You will need to choose, Alexei," the woman continued, her voice a soft murmur. "What lies ahead may change. You, forever." As the forest breathed around us, I realized that the path I had chosen began to intertwine with the fate of the very land I had sworn to protect. The forest was alive, and its secrets were waiting to be uncovered. But with each revelation, the stakes grew higher, and the shadows deepened, threatening to consume us both. Together, we took a step into the unknown, ready to face the darkness that loomed ahead, unaware of the true cost that lay in wait. The forest had awakened, and we were now part of its story, a tale woven in whispers, shadows, and the haunting echoes of the past. As I stood there, the woman's presence felt both ethereal and terrifying. Each heartbeat resonated in my ears, a reminder of the urgency and peril we faced. I glanced at Dmitri, whose expression mirrored my own turmoil, fear mingled with a desperate hope. The forest had become a living entity, and we were at its mercy. "Confront the guardian," I whispered, trying to digest her cryptic message. "But how do we do that? What does that even mean?" The woman tilted her head, her long hair cascading like shadows around her. The guardian is not merely a spirit to be faced. It is a reflection of your own fears and regrets. You must enter the heart of the forest, where the light and dark intersect. Only then can you find the truth. Enter the heart of the forest, I repeated, the words tasting foreign on my tongue. The very thought sent shivers down my spine. The trees loomed like silent watchers, their gnarled branches reaching toward the sky as if trying to grasp the stars. I had always felt a connection to this land, an affinity for nature that my father had instilled in me. Yet, in this moment, that connection felt like a tether to something much darker. What if we can't face it? Dimitri's voice trembled, echoing my own doubts. What if it consumes us? Then we'll face it together. My resolve hardened. I couldn't let fear dictate our actions. The forest was vast and filled with secrets, but I had to believe there was a way to restore balance, to protect the very land that had sheltered me for so long. The woman nodded, her gaze unwavering. Then, take the path of shadows. It will lead you to the guardian, but beware. What you discover may alter your very essence. As she stepped back into the darkness, the air around us thickened, and the whispers grew more insistent. I felt a pull, a desire to follow her into the depths of the forest, but I knew I had to focus. We need to gather supplies, I said, urgency lacing my voice. If we're going deeper, we can't go unprepared. Dimitri nodded, and for a moment, the weight of our situation felt lighter. We moved quickly back to the cabin, gathering flashlights, rope, and a small first aid kit. As I packed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The walls of the cabin felt like they were closing in, alive with the echoes of a past I couldn't fully understand. Alexei, Dimitri said, breaking my concentration, what did you mean when you said you had a connection to this land? You never mentioned anything before. I hesitated, the memories flooding my mind like a tide I couldn't hold back. My father was a ranger too. He used to tell me stories about the spirits that protect this forest. He believed in them, said they were the reason the land thrived. But he also warned me about disturbing them. I thought he was being superstitious. I paused, the weight of those words heavy on my heart. He disappeared years ago, during one of his patrols. I always thought it was an accident, but now, Dimitri's eyes widened. You think it's connected to this? I don't know. The truth hung between us, a gaping wound I hadn't dared to explore until now. But I always felt his absence here, in the trees and the wind. It's as if he's a part of the forest itself, watching over me. Dimitri studied me, his brow furrowing. What if the guardian knows what happened to him? What if he's still here, lost between the worlds? The thought sent a jolt through me. You think he might be trapped? It's possible, he replied, his voice low. But if that's the case, how do we help him? How do we confront something that could be so entwined in our past? The weight of his words settled over me like a shroud. If my father was connected to the guardian, then facing it would mean confronting my own grief and guilt. Would I be strong enough to face that? Could I even trust my own mind in this place where reality blurred with the shadows? As we finished packing, I felt a wave of uncertainty wash over me. The forest wasn't just a backdrop to our story. It was a living, breathing entity with its own history and secrets. And as we stepped outside once more, I realized that the journey ahead would force us to confront not just the guardian, but the very essence of who we were. With flashlights in hand, we ventured into the darkness, the trees closing in around us. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around us like a tangible force. I could feel the hum vibrating through the ground beneath my feet, guiding us toward the heart of the forest. Do you hear that? Dimitri asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my senses heightened. It's like a song, but it feels wrong. We pressed on, the path growing narrower, the shadows growing thicker. As we walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent adrenaline coursing through my veins. I glanced back at Dmitri, who was scanning the trees with a mix of fear and determination. "Keep your eyes peeled," I murmured. "We're not alone out here." And then it happened. Just as we reached a clearing, the ground beneath us trembled, and a low growl echoed through the trees. My heart raced as I turned to see a massive creature emerging from the shadows, a dark figure with glowing eyes, its form shifting between the corporeal and the ethereal. "What is that?" Dmitri gasped, fear etched across his face. "I don't know," I replied, my voice trembling, "but it's not friendly." The creature lunged, and instinct kicked in. We turned and ran, the forest closing in around us, branches scratching at our skin as we fled. My mind raced, questioning everything I thought I knew. Was this the Guardian? Or had we awakened something far more sinister? "Alexei, this way!" Dmitri shouted, veering to the left. I followed, my heart pounding in my chest as we darted. Through the underbrush, the beast was gaining on us, its growls echoing in the night, a haunting reminder of our mortality. "Where do we go?" I yelled, panic rising in my throat. "Back to the cabin," he shouted. "We can barricade ourselves." But even as I ran, doubt crept into my mind. What if the cabin wasn't a safe haven? What if it was already too late? The forest felt alive, and we were mere intruders in its domain. As we burst through the trees, the cabin loomed ahead, but the creature was closer than ever. I could feel its breath on my neck, hot and foul, as we reached the door. With trembling hands, I fumbled for the handle, adrenaline surging through me. "Get in!" Dmitri shouted, pushing me through the door before slamming it shut behind him. We leaned against it, breathless, listening, as the creature prowled outside, its growls reverberating through the wood. "What the hell was that?" I gasped, my heart racing. "I don't know," Dmitri replied, his expression haunted. "But whatever it is, it's tied to the forest, and we've awakened it." The journal lay open on the table, the pages fluttering as if caught in an unseen wind. I felt the weight of the words within, the secrets begging to be unraveled. "We need to go back," I said, my voice a whisper. "We need to discover what this Guardian truly is. If we're to restore balance, we have to understand what we're dealing with." Dmitri nodded, but uncertainty clouded his eyes. "You're right, but it's dangerous. We might lose ourselves in the process." I met his gaze, my own fear mirrored in his eyes. "We can't turn back now, not when we're this close to the truth. Whatever is out there, we need to face it." As the shadows danced around us, I felt the weight of my past pressing down on my shoulders. I was no longer just a ranger, I was a part of something much larger, a legacy woven into the very fabric of the forest. And as I stood there, the boundaries between my past and present blurred, leading me to a truth I had long buried. "We'll confront the Guardian," I said, my voice firm. "Together. But we must prepare ourselves for whatever it might reveal. The forest is alive, and it demands answers." With that, we steeled ourselves for the journey ahead, knowing that the shadows held not just danger, but the key to understanding our own intertwined fates. The forest had awakened, and we were ready to face the darkness that awaited us, unaware of the true cost that lay ahead. As I stood there in the dim light of the cabin, the weight of our decision pressed heavily on my chest. The growls of the creature outside echoed in my ears, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked just beyond the door. I could feel my heart racing, not just from fear, but from the urgency of the situation. We had awakened something ancient, something primal, and now it was hunting us. "Do you think it's gone?" Dmitri asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I could see the uncertainty etched across his face. The shadows in the cabin seemed to stretch and twist, reflecting our own fears. "I don't know," I replied, my voice shaking. "But we can't just wait here. We need to understand what we're up against." I stepped away from the door, the cool wood pressing against my back providing little comfort. Dmitri shot me a worried look. "You want to go back out there, after what just happened?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing thoughts. "We have to. If we don't confront this Guardian, or whatever that thing was, we'll never be free of it. It'll keep coming for us, and who knows what else it might do." He hesitated, glancing at the door as if the creature might burst through at any moment. But how do we even begin to confront something like that? What if it's tied to your father's disappearance? The mention of my father sent a jolt through me. I had buried those memories deep, but now they clawed their way back to the surface, demanding to be acknowledged. We need to find out what happened to him, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. If we can understand the Guardian, maybe we can uncover the truth about my father. Dmitri nodded slowly, though his eyes were still wide with fear. Okay, but we need to be smart about this. We can't just rush in blindly. We need a plan. Turn to the journal on the table, its pages still fluttering as though they were alive. My fingers trembled as I reached for it, the leather cover worn and familiar under my touch. Let's see if there's anything in here that can help us, I said, flipping through the pages. The ink was faded, but I could still make out the scrawled notes my father had left behind. Listen to this, I said, reading aloud. The guardian of the forest is a keeper of secrets. It reflects the fears of those who seek it. To confront it is to confront oneself. I paused, the weight of the words settling in. What does that even mean? It means we have to face our own demons, Dmitri replied, his tone grave. For you, that might be your father's legacy. For me, it might be, well, everything. I looked at him, seeing the shadows of his own past reflected in his eyes. What do you mean? He shrugged, a pained smile flickering across his lips. I've made my share of mistakes. I didn't always stand up for what was right. I let fear dictate my choices. I felt a pang of empathy for him. We were both standing on the precipice of our own unresolved issues, and the forest had a way of dragging them into the light. Whatever it is, we'll face it together, I said, my voice stronger now. But first, we need to gather more information. I thumbed through the journal, searching for any clues that might lead us to the heart of the forest. There were sketches of the terrain, notes on the flora and fauna, and even some strange symbols that seemed to pulse with an energy of their own. Here, I said, pointing to a map my father had drawn. This shows a path leading to a clearing. It's marked as a place of power. We might find answers there. Dmitri leaned closer, studying the map. We'll need to be cautious. If that creature is still out there, it will be, I interrupted, the certainty lacing my words. But we can't let fear control us. We can't let it dictate our choices. If we're going to confront the Guardian, we need to prepare. We gathered what supplies we could from the cabin, more flashlights, extra batteries, and a small knife I found tucked away in a drawer. I felt a sense of purpose building within me, a determination to face whatever lay ahead. I couldn't allow my father's past to remain shrouded in mystery. As we stepped outside, the air was thick with tension. The forest loomed around us, the trees swaying gently as if whispering secrets. I felt a shiver run down my spine, a mixture of excitement and dread. Stick close, I instructed, my voice firm. Dmitri nodded, his steps matching mine as we ventured deeper into the woods. The path was uneven and overgrown, but I could feel the pull of the clearing ahead, a beacon calling us toward the truth. With each step, the whispers grew louder, swirling around us like a tempest. I could almost make out words, but they eluded me, slipping through my fingers like sand. Do you hear that? I asked, glancing at Dmitri. He nodded, his expression tense. It's unsettling. Like the forest is alive, and it doesn't want us here? We pressed on, the darkness growing thicker as the trees closed in around us. I felt the weight of the shadows pressing against my back, a reminder that we were intruders in this sacred space. But as we walked, something shifted in the air, a change that sent a jolt of energy coursing through me. Wait, I said, halting in my tracks. Do you feel that? Dmitri stopped beside me, his brow furrowed. What do you mean? I closed my eyes, reaching out with my senses. The energy was palpable, like electricity in the air. It's like something is watching us, but not just the creature, something deeper. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the underbrush, and I turned quickly, my heart racing. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman her long hair flowing like a river of darkness. She wore a cloak made of leaves and vines, her eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. "Why have you come here?" she asked, her voice echoing through the trees. I felt a surge of recognition wash over me, the same sense of ethereal terror I had experienced before. "We seek the Guardian," I replied, my voice steady, despite the tremor of fear. "We need to understand what it wants." The woman studied us, her gaze piercing through the darkness. "You seek answers, but are you prepared for the truths that lie ahead? The Guardian will not show mercy. It demands sacrifice." "Sacrifice," Dmitri echoed, his voice shaking. "What kind of sacrifice?" Her expression remained inscrutable. "The forest requires balance. To confront the Guardian is to confront your innermost fears. Are you willing to face the cost?" I felt the weight of her words pressing down on me. In that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about my father. It was about everything I had ever run from: the grief, the guilt, the choices I had made. "We are ready," I declared, though the words felt both brave and foolish. The woman nodded slowly, her form flickering like a candle in the wind. "Then follow me. The heart of the forest awaits, and the Guardian will not be kind to those who are unprepared." As she turned and glided deeper into the shadows, I exchanged a glance with Dmitri. The uncertainty hung between us, a third presence that felt almost tangible. But there was no turning back now. We had come too far, and the answers lay just ahead. "Let's go," I said, my voice a whisper against the encroaching darkness. We followed the woman into the depths of the forest, the path winding and treacherous as the shadows loomed ever closer. Each step drew us nearer to the inevitable confrontation, a collision of past and present that would change everything. The forest was alive with secrets, and I knew that whatever awaited us at the heart would demand not just our courage, but the very essence of who we were. The Guardian awaited, and we were about to uncover the truth that had been hidden for far too long. As we followed the cloaked woman deeper into the forest, the atmosphere grew denser, charged with an energy that felt almost sentient. The trees loomed like ancient sentinels, their gnarled branches entwined overhead, blocking out the moonlight and casting eerie shadows on the ground. I could feel the pulse of the forest beneath my feet, a rhythmic thrum that seemed to resonate with my own heartbeat. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. I stole a glance at Dmitri beside me. His face was pale, but determination shone through his fear. I knew he felt it too, the weight of the moment, the gravity of our choices. We were standing on the edge of something profound, and I could sense that the forest was watching, waiting for us to make our move. "Do you think we're really ready for this?" he whispered, his voice barely rising above the rustling leaves. I nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at my insides. "We have to be," I replied. "There's no turning back. The only way out is through." The woman ahead of us came to a sudden stop, and I nearly collided with her as she turned to face us. Her eyes glinted like stars, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. "We're almost there," she said, her voice smooth and melodic, yet laced with a sense of urgency. "But remember, the Guardian will reflect your fears. You must stand firm in your resolve, or you will be consumed by what you find." "Consumed?" Dmitri echoed, his brow furrowed. "Fear can manifest in many forms," she warned, her gaze intense. "It can twist your mind, distort your reality. Do not falter when you confront it." I swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling in my chest. I had faced my fears before, but never like this. This time, I would have to confront my father's legacy, the darkness that had haunted me since his disappearance. I could feel the shadows of my past creeping up my spine, whispering doubts into my ears. What if I wasn't strong enough? What if I lost myself in the process? "Stay close," I murmured to Dmitri as we pressed on. The woman moved ahead, gliding through the underbrush with an ease that seemed unnatural. We followed her, our footsteps silent against the soft earth, until we finally reached a clearing. The space opened up before us, bathed in an ethereal glow that seemed to emanate from the ground itself. In the center stood a massive stone altar, covered in moss and vines, its surface etched with intricate symbols that pulsed with a soft light. It felt alive, as if it were breathing. "Welcome to the heart of the forest," the woman said, her voice echoing in the stillness. "Here lies the guardian." As if summoned by her words, a low growl rumbled from the shadows beyond the clearing, sending a chill through my bones. I instinctively took a step back, but the woman raised a hand, her expression resolute. "Face it," she commanded. "You cannot hide from what you fear." "Stay together," I whispered to Dmitri, feeling an electric tension coil in the air. The growl grew louder, reverberating through the ground like thunder, and suddenly the guardian emerged from the trees. It was a beast of nightmares. Its form was massive, muscles rippling beneath dark, matted fur. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, piercing through the darkness like twin suns. The creature's jaws opened, revealing razor-sharp teeth that glistened in the dim light. Fear clawed at my throat, but I forced myself to stand my ground. "Why have you come?" The guardian roared, its voice a thunderous echo that vibrated through my very bones. "What do you seek in my domain?" I stepped forward, my heart pounding in my chest. "We seek answers about my father, about the forest, and about you." The guardian tilted its massive head, curiosity flickering in its eyes. "You tread on dangerous ground, child. The past is a heavy burden and the truth can be a weapon." "I'm not afraid," I declared, though I could feel the tremor in my voice. "I need to know what happened. I need to confront my fears." The beast let out a low growl, the sound resonating in my chest. "You speak of courage, yet fear lingers in your heart. What do you truly fear?" In that moment, memories flooded my mind. My father's absence, the guilt of not being able to save him, the weight of expectations I had never asked for. I felt the tears prick my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I fear losing myself in the darkness," I admitted, my voice trembling. "I fear that I will never be enough." The guardian's gaze softened, and I sensed a shift in the air. "To confront your fears is to embrace your true self. You cannot run from the past, but you can learn from it. What do you seek, child?" "Closure," I replied, my voice steadying. "I want to know what happened to my father. I want to understand his choices, and mine." The guardian regarded me for a long moment, its eyes searching. "Very well, but know this. The truth will not come without cost. You must be willing to sacrifice your illusions." "What do you mean?" Dmitri asked, stepping forward, his voice strong but tinged with uncertainty. The guardian turned its gaze to him, and I could see the weight of his own fears reflected in its eyes. "You too carry burdens, young one. What do you fear losing most?" Dmitri hesitated, his brow furrowed. "I fear failing those I care about. I fear letting fear dictate my choices, as it has in the past." The guardian nodded, its expression grave. "Then you too must be prepared to confront the truths of your heart." Suddenly, the ground beneath us began to tremble, the runes on the altar glowing brighter. A whirlwind of energy spiraled around us, and I felt myself being pulled into the vortex. The guardian's voice roared above the chaos, "Face your truths. Only then will you find the answers you seek." I closed my eyes, surrendering to the storm of emotions that surged within me. Memories, regrets, and fears swirled around me, each one a sharp blade that threatened to cut deeper. I saw my father's face, twisted in anguish, and I felt the weight of his absence pressing down on me. "Let go," I shouted into the void, my voice echoing through the darkness. "I won't be defined by my past." With that declaration, the whirlwind intensified, and I felt a surge of power within me. I embraced my fears, acknowledging them for what they were, pieces of my story, but not the entirety of who I was. When I opened my eyes, I found myself standing on the altar, the guardian towering above me. The energy around us pulsed with intensity, and I could sense the truth within me, waiting to be revealed. "Are you ready?" the guardian asked, its voice softer now, as if it had transformed in the face of my courage. "Yes," I replied, my heart steady. "Show me." In that moment, the world around me shifted, and I knew I was on the precipice of uncovering the truth that had eluded me for so long. The Guardian had become a mirror, reflecting my innermost fears and desires, and I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. But just as I prepared to dive into the depths of my past, a sharp cry pierced the air. "Dmitri!" I turned to see him struggling against the shadows that had crept up around him, tendrils of darkness wrapping around his limbs. "Help me!" he shouted, panic rising in his voice. "Dmitri!" I cried, reaching for him, but the shadows tightened their grip, pulling him away. The forest seemed to come alive with laughter, taunting us with our helplessness. "Focus!" the Guardian roared, grounding me in the chaos. "You must confront your fears together. Stand firm." I took a deep breath, rallying my resolve. "Dmitri, fight it! Remember what we talked about?" He met my gaze, fear flashing in his eyes, but there was something else too, a flicker of determination. "I won't let it win!" he shouted, his voice breaking through the darkness. With a surge of adrenaline, I leaped toward him, reaching for his hand. "Together!" I yelled, grasping his wrist and pulling with all my strength. The shadows hissed, recoiling from our combined light, but I could feel their resistance. "Let go of your fear," I urged, feeling the warmth of our connection. "We can do this together." With one final push, I felt the shadows release Dmitri, and he stumbled into my arms, breathless but unbroken. The Guardian watched, its eyes glowing brighter as the energy around us shifted. "Now, face the darkness," it commanded. I could feel the pressure building, the weight of our fears pressing down on us, but I refused to buckle. We were stronger together, and in that moment, I felt a wave of clarity wash over me. The truth awaited us, but we had to confront the shadows that sought to tear us apart. "Dmitri, are you ready?" I asked, my voice steady. "Ready," he replied, and together we stepped forward, facing the darkness head on. As the shadows swirled around us, I could feel the Guardian's presence guiding us, urging us to as we plunged deeper into the swirling shadows. I could feel the darkness, clawing at my mind, threatening to drag me down into the depths of my fears. The Guardian loomed above us, a monumental presence that seemed to pulse with a life of its own, urging us on. The shadows writhed around us like serpents, whispering our insecurities, echoing our doubts. "Dmitri," I called, feeling the bond between us flicker like a candle fighting against the wind. "Stay with me! We can't let it take us." "I won't," he shouted, determination igniting in his voice. "I refuse to be afraid." Together we stepped forward, hand in hand, our combined light pushing against the encroaching darkness. I could feel the shadows trying to pry us apart, but we stood firm, our resolve unyielding. The Guardian's voice echoed through the chaos, guiding us. "Focus on your truth. Embrace it." In that moment, the shadows coalesced around us, forming images of our deepest fears. I saw my father's face, haunted, twisted in pain. "You couldn't save me," he whispered, his voice a chilling echo of regret. My heart ached at the sight, but I steeled myself. "No, I won't let you define me," I shouted, forcing my grief to the surface, letting it wash over me like a tide. I had mourned him for too long, and it was time to let go of the guilt that had anchored me to the past. Dmitri was beside me, his own shadows manifesting as visions of failure and loss. I could see flashes of his life, moments where he felt he had disappointed those he loved. "You're not a failure," I yelled, my voice slicing through the darkness. "You fought harder than anyone I know. You're not defined by one moment." With those words, I felt a surge of power coursing through us. The shadows began to waver, their grip loosening as we confronted them. The Guardian watched, its gaze steady, a quiet strength radiating from its being. "Yes, embrace your truths. They cannot hurt you if you own them." Feeling the weight of our fears lighten, I pulled Dmitri closer. "We're in this together," I reminded him, each word a promise. "We can face whatever comes next." With that, we surged forward, the shadows swirling violently around us. I could see the Guardian now, its eyes burning with a fierce light. "Face the darkness. It is only a reflection." As we stepped deeper into the storm, I felt a sudden shift, a moment where time seemed to stand still. The swirling shadows coalesced into a single massive form, a tempest of darkness. Yet, it was also a mirror of ourselves. I could feel its weight, the fears I had fought against, now taking a physical shape. "Together!" I shouted again, gripping Dimitri's hand tightly. "We're stronger together." The Guardian roared, its voice a thunderous boom that reverberated through the clearing. "Now, confront it!" In that instant, I met the gaze of the shadowy beast, and what I saw reflected back was a twisted version of myself, an embodiment of my guilt, my insecurities, and my fears. I felt my heart race as it lunged at me, teeth bared, but I stood my ground. "I am not afraid of you," I declared, feeling the strength of my past and present rallying within me. "You do not control me." Dimitri stepped forward, his voice steady. "And you don't control him either," he shouted, standing beside me. "We are not defined by what we fear." As our words resonated in the air, I felt a surge of energy erupting from our core, illuminating the darkness around us. The shadowy beast recoiled, its form flickering as the light pierced through the gloom. The Guardian's energy pulsed with ours, and I felt the shadows begin to dissolve, unraveling like threads in the wind. But just as I thought we had conquered the darkness, the shadow surged back, more furious than before. "You think you can escape?" it hissed, its voice a cacophony of my doubts. "You are nothing without your fears." "No," I shouted back, my voice steady. "I am everything because of them. They are part of my story, but they do not define my future." With one final push, I summoned every ounce of strength I had left. The light erupted from my heart, enveloping the beast, and with a deafening roar, the shadows shattered around us like glass, scattering into the night. In the aftermath, the clearing fell silent. I collapsed to my knees, gasping for breath, the weight of the confrontation settling over me like a heavy blanket. Dimitri fell beside me, panting, his face pale but resolute. "We did it," he breathed, looking up at the Guardian, which now radiated a gentle light. "We faced it." "Yes," the Guardian replied, its voice warm and soothing. "You have confronted your fears and emerged stronger. But remember, the journey does not end here. The shadows may return, and new challenges await." I nodded, understanding the weight of its words. I could feel the scars of this encounter etched into my very being, both emotional and physical. My heart bore the weight of the truths I had uncovered, and the emotional toll of facing my past would linger long after we left the forest. "Thank you," I said, my voice shaky but sincere, "for guiding us." The Guardian inclined its head. "You have much to learn, and your journey is far from over. But know this, the forest will always be here to guide you, should you choose to return." As the Guardian's presence began to fade, I felt a flicker of uncertainty. There was so much left unexplained, so many questions still lingering in the air. My father's legacy, the mysteries of the forest, and the true nature of the Guardian remained shrouded in shadows. "Wait," I called out, desperation creeping into my voice. "What about my father? What happened to him?" The Guardian paused, its gaze penetrating. "Some truths are not yet ready to be revealed, but your heart knows the way. Trust in yourself and in those you hold dear." With that, the Guardian dissipated, leaving us alone in the clearing. The ethereal glow of the altar faded, replaced by the gentle light of the moon filtering through the trees. I felt a mix of relief and frustration. We had overcome the darkness, but the answers I sought remained elusive. Dimitri stood beside me, his hand still gripping mine. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "I will be," I replied, my voice steadying as I took a deep breath. "But I still have so many questions." He nodded, his expression shifting to one of determination. "We'll figure it out together. We faced the darkness and came out stronger. Whatever comes next, we'll face it side by side." As we began to make our way back through the forest, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had only scratched the surface of the mysteries that lay ahead. The shadows might have receded for now, but I sensed they would return, perhaps in new forms, alongside new challenges. "We need to come back," I said, glancing at Dimitri. There's more to uncover here, about the forest, about my father, about everything. He smiled, a spark of excitement igniting in his eyes. Agreed, this isn't over, not by a long shot. As we stepped back onto the familiar path, I could feel the forest shifting around us, its energy still palpable. There was still so much to learn, so many mysteries left unresolved, and I could sense that our journey was just beginning. And as the shadows danced among the trees, I knew that whatever lay ahead, we would face it together. The forest held its secrets tightly, but we were armed with courage and understanding, ready to confront whatever challenges awaited us in the depths of the unknown. As we moved deeper into the forest, the echoes of our confrontation with the chief. Darkness still thrummed through me, but a new sensation began to creep in, one I hadn't anticipated. A whisper, soft yet insistent, slithered through the air like a serpent, curling around my thoughts. It was a seductive murmur that seemed to promise power, something I had longed for in the wake of my father's loss. "We did it," I repeated, but the words felt hollow now, as if a part of me was beginning to unravel. The light that had erupted from my heart during our battle still flickered within me, but the shadows were not entirely gone. The forest pulsed with a life of its own, and I could feel its dark tendrils reaching out, beckoning me closer. Dmitri walked beside me, oblivious to the turmoil brewing in my chest. "What do you think the Guardian meant about our journey?" he asked, glancing up at the trees that towered above us. "I don't know," I replied, forcing a smile. "But we'll find out." Yet, as we pushed forward, I felt a chilling realization settle in my gut. The shadows had not been vanquished. They had merely retreated, lying in wait, ready to ensnare me again. We emerged from the forest clearing, the moonlight casting a silver glow over the path ahead. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could sense a change in the atmosphere. It was as if the forest itself was watching, waiting for me to make my next move. "Look," Dmitri said, pointing ahead. "The exit." But I didn't respond. My heart raced as I felt a pulse of energy surge through me, a strange sensation that clawed at my thoughts, urging me to turn back. I hesitated, a shadow of doubt creeping into my mind. "Are you okay?" Dmitri asked, turning back to me. "We should get out of here." I met his gaze, and in that moment, I saw the concern etched into his features. I wanted to reassure him, to tell him that everything would be fine, but the whispers grew louder, wrapping around my mind like a vice. "Dmitri, wait," I said, my voice trembling. What if there's more we need to do here? What if the Guardian was right? What if there are still truths we need to uncover?" "What do you mean?" he asked, his brow furrowing in confusion. "We face the darkness. We can't go back in there. But what if we should?" The words slipped out before I could contain them. I felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through me, a dangerous thrill that made my heart race. What if we could gain something from it? Power. Knowledge. Dmitri's eyes widened. "No, that's exactly what the shadows want. It's a trap." I felt a flicker of anger at his dismissal, a spark ignited by the shadows' seductive whispers. "You don't understand. We have a chance to become something more, to harness the energy of the forest, to become stronger." "Stop it!" he shouted, taking a step back. "You're not thinking straight. The darkness will consume you." But the shadows were already reaching for me, whispering promises of strength and control, weaving illusions of grandeur that danced tantalizingly at the edge of my perception. I could feel their fingers brushing against my consciousness, and with each passing moment, I found it harder to resist. "Dmitri," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "I don't want to leave. I want to understand. I want to embrace it." "No," he screamed, but it was too late. The shadows surged around me, wrapping me in their embrace, pulling me into their depths. I could feel the darkness seeping into my veins, corrupting my thoughts, twisting my desires. In that moment of surrender, the shadows transformed into a swirling tempest, engulfing my vision. I was no longer just a spectator. I was entwined with the darkness, my essence melding with its chaotic energy. The power surged within me, intoxicating and exhilarating, and I could feel the weight of my fears dissipating as I embraced this new identity. "Dmitri," I cried out, the sound reverberating through the void. "I can feel it. I can become more. Together, we can control this." But as I turned to reach for him, I saw the fear in his eyes, fear not just for himself, but for me. "No, don't. Give in. Fight it," he implored, desperation lacing his voice. But it was too late. The shadows wrapped around my heart, binding me to their will, and I felt myself slipping away. The warmth of our bond faded, replaced by an icy grip of power that I had longed for but never truly understood. I was becoming something unrecognizable, a vessel for the darkness that had once haunted me. "No, you're losing yourself, Dmitri," shouted, his voice fading as the shadows closed in around me. He was slipping away, and I couldn't reach him. The forest transformed, shifting with my emotions, the trees twisting into grotesque shapes, their branches clawing at the sky. I could feel my humanity slipping through my fingers like sand, and I was left with a terrifying choice: embrace the darkness completely or fight against it, risking my very soul. But the whispers were relentless, filling my mind with visions of power, of revenge against the shadows that had tormented me for so long. I could feel the darkness promising me everything I had ever wanted, whispering sweet nothings that resonated deep within my fractured spirit. "Dmitri," I tried to call out, but the shadows had silenced my voice. I was trapped, ensnared by the very force I had fought so hard against. In that moment of despair, I realized the truth. I was not just facing my fears, I was becoming them. The darkness that I had battled had found a home within me, and I was its new vessel. With one final surge of will, I reached out for Dmitri, but the shadows clawed at my mind, drowning out his pleas. I was losing him, losing myself, and the realization filled me with dread. The forest was alive, pulsing with the energy of my corruption, and I was its new heir. As I stood at the precipice of my transformation, I felt the weight of my choices settle over me like a shroud. I could feel my past slipping away, my memories blurring into the darkness that now claimed me. The forest had consumed me, and there was no turning back. The last remnants of my humanity screamed within me, but the white shadows drowned them out. I was no longer just a girl searching for answers. I was a harbinger of darkness, a vessel for the very force I had once fought against. And as I embraced my new reality, I felt the darkness surge within me, a chilling power that promised to consume everything in its path. "Dmitri," I whispered, the name now a distant echo. As the shadows enveloped me completely, in the depths of the forest, I had become the very thing I feared, the heir of evil, forever bound to the darkness that had once tormented me. As the last flicker of light faded from my heart, I knew my journey was far from over. I would rise unshackled and powerful, but at the cost of everything I had ever been. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story.